I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We have pulled off a miracle today. There are 42 college kids that have been here silently from San Diego State since 8 a.m. And we haven't even locked them in the closet. So we'll try to keep it down and not disturb them. I figure anytime you can get 40 college kids to do anything on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m., it's quite fantastic, let alone come here and be stuck with themselves for 4 hours. Now, to be fair, they had no idea what they were coming into, and they have zero meditation, for the most part, experience. Some of them all of like 2 weeks. We don't guide them. We don't instruct them. We don't tell them how to sit. We don't tell them what to do. We just leave them with themselves for 4 hours. And yeah, I'm talking about them, not us. And part of that is, I bring this up because I'm talking to you all, not them. And I always encourage people, if you've never done the Day of Silence here, which we do every month, to try it, because you're stuck with yourself for 4 hours. If you're here, most of you probably have some meditation experience. Maybe you're here day one, brand new. Some of you may be, brand new, so I still encourage you to try it. But it's an incredible thing when you sit with yourself for 4 hours. We're going to do it here for just about 20 minutes, and you'll see it can be a little challenging sometimes. It can be quiet and peaceful and relaxing, and it can also be maybe not so peaceful and relaxing, whatever that means. But yeah, 4 hours of silence is a really beautiful practice. So try having a meal in silence. You ever go to dinner with a friend or lunch with a friend and just have silence? Try that. And not just because you're mad at them and don't want to talk to them. But it's incredible how potentially uncomfortable silence can be for a lot of people. And no better way than to learn than force yourself to do it. To my knowledge, everyone has survived so far that's ever done it. So yeah, I guess so it'll be next Saturday, right? We're at the end of the month.
Saturday.
Yeah, so next Saturday, 8 a.m., you can show up. And it continues, the last hour is downstairs. So we still have the 11 o'clock, but you'll just finish downstairs from 11 till noon. So I encourage you all to try it. So. All right, with that, we'll do a meditation practice. For those who may be sitting for the first time, a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences, most likely. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Shoulders are relaxed, hands go on the knees or in the lap. But if you need to move during meditation, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, it just means your leg hurts or your arm itches. So simply move and then you'll return to stillness. I will guide us as we begin and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply going to continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where is your mind? Return attention, focus to the breath. keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with body still, resting, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind, learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. And compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external situation. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. There's a human being no different than anyone in this room who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. You began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where you come from, what you believe in, or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get every day. Practice of meditation is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way we respond to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our days. So all we're working on is closing the gap. So the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, and disturbed by no one. This practice is not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily fun. Meditation is not an escape, as often people think it is. It's direct perception into the present moment. Sometimes that present moment is difficult, challenging, not so pleasant. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, getting to know the nature of your own mind, and watching what it does every moment of your life. Becoming fully aware of what you do, when you do it, and why you do it. Becoming fully aware of what you think and what you say and what you do in every moment. And that's very rare for most people. Because most people are too busy doing things to actually stop and pay attention to what's going on in their minds. That's why I highlight the 42 college kids sitting downstairs right now, because for most of them, 18, 19 years old, I guarantee unless they're plopped in front of Netflix, they haven't done 4 hours of being away from anything. Most of them. Whether it's a phone in their hand or a screen that they're looking at, there's constant stimulation from the external environment. Constant. Some of us grew up without that, to some extent. We had it other ways. We just had to sit a lot closer to the TV and turn the box with our hands, which would explain the eyesight. My mom kept saying, "You're going to get bad eyes." I don't know what she was talking about. But when we just sit by ourselves and we set down the phones and we set down the distractions and we set down everything, and we sit in a place that is relatively quiet and peaceful, and we remove all of those distractions and things that kind of stimulate the mind from our presence, you're left with the most important thing, and that's your mind. And that's the thing that most of us are afraid to sit with, which is why I always encourage sitting quietly. And as I always say, it doesn't make it fun, it doesn't make it easy, it doesn't make it peaceful. To me, meditation practice and sitting is not, I don't do it to relax. The purpose of the Buddhist teachings is to wake up. There's no let's all chill out and relax sutra. Last time I checked. But the reality is, for most people who come into Buddhism in a Western culture, most people, including myself, come into meditation or Buddhist practice because they want to relax and chill out and deal with their anger and deal with their emotions, right? The practice is to wake up. That's what the Buddha said. Let's wake up to the nature of our own minds and the cause of our suffering. It's not pleasant. Every person who leads meditation and Buddhist practice all does it differently, and that's the beauty of it. Everybody who leads it, nobody has any idea what they're talking about, and they're all making up what they think is right. Right? Every one of them just as unenlightened as the next. So all I share is my approach, which is what I had to do as a practitioner, was stop using meditation and Buddhism as an escape. Stop using meditation as the thing that was supposed to calm me down, And I had to wake up and realize I need to stop doing the things that are putting me in situations or positions to feel angry or whatever it might be. Or if you're stressed or anxious or whatever's going on, whatever led you here, look at those things. Otherwise, we just repeat. Stressed out, go meditate. Stressed out, go meditate. Stressed out, go meditate. Head hurts, pop Advil. Head hurts, pop Advil. We keep looking for the fix. And I believe the Buddha was teaching us to look at the cause of what's causing the problem. So if when you sit and it's unpleasant and uncomfortable and a little bit physically or mentally or emotionally painful when you sit, yes, it is. That is life. Life is a little bit physically, mentally, emotionally painful. I mean, that's the first thing the Buddha said, right? They called him the awakened one, and he wasn't like, all right, all this is going to be fun. No, he said, all right, we all suffer. But why? Let's look at why. Don't avoid it. Don't ignore it. Don't pretend it's not there. Right? It is there with all of us, and the practice is to observe where is it coming from. And the Buddha said very clearly, it's what we think, what we say, and what we do. Which for me, that is the only practice to become aware of. And to do it constantly, everything you're doing all day long, not just Saturday from 11 to 12, or Wednesday, or whenever you may come here or anywhere you go to, but always to stop and recognize, why am I doing this? What is the cause of this action right now? And again, to kind of close that thought, one of the best ways to become aware of all of that is to set everything down and just get quiet. And then you begin to realize, oh man, this is a mess. And you learn to be with it. So, meditation doesn't fix your mind. Buddhist practice doesn't fix your mind. It doesn't make any of your problems go away. It just brings them to your attention. So, with that, I'll just open up to questions. I always really prefer to just address anything that's on your mind, meditation, Buddhist practice, and we'll go from there.
In the past few days, I've been extremely stressed. I've had some unavoidable stressors, and I came in here with a lot of anxiety. And after the meditation, I was almost 100% calm. It completely settled. And my question is that the awakened state, or am I just relaxed? Because you talked about it, the awakened state. Is that a glimpse of it, or do I still have a lot more to go?
They're laughing with you, not at you. I just want to point that out. It's one would have to have experienced the awakened state to make any comments on what the awakened state is. And I have not, so I can't comment on what it is. God, by that expression on your face, I hope you don't think I have.
No, I can't do that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. No, I'm just as ignorant and as much of an idiot as anybody else in this room. No offense to all you kind of people, right? I just sit up here and I've been struggling at this maybe longer than many of you and practicing. I shouldn't say struggling at it longer, but practicing maybe longer. But I have zero sense of awakening. I have pretty good awareness of ignorance. So maybe we'll come back to that. But let me come back to your question. What you said is you came in here with some pretty heavy, unavoidable stressors or circumstances in your life that the last few days have caused a lot of stress and anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you said that after sitting for 20 minutes, you pretty much felt relaxed and at ease, and those were gone, right? So let me ask you a question. During these last 20 minutes that we sat here, the 30 minutes that you've been here, all the problems that you were talking about, just because you're sitting here, did they go away? Did they change? Did they miraculously solve themselves? No. So I hate to put you back to that, but this is more important because it's going to happen later today anyways, right? All that crap that you're talking about, it's all still there. It was there an hour ago. It was there, if you said this has been going on the last few days, it was there the last few days. It's there now, and it's going to be there when you walk out these doors. Do you think it just went away?
I was hoping.
Well, I think you've answered your own question about the awakening, right? If it were that easy to just hope and problems go away, that would be wonderful. The point that I'm making here, which I think you're slowly getting, is you chose to respond to what's happening in your present life differently than you have been the last few days. You chose to sit here and breathe and maybe not focus on it as much, maybe not create as many stories in your head as much, maybe not wrestle with it as much. You attempted to some extent to just let it be. And all of a sudden you feel relaxed. But it's all still there. No one's problems have been solved while you're sitting here. I hate to break it to you, you know? The world that's a mess, 30 minutes ago is still a mess now. The question is, where's your mind? And what's your mind doing with that mess? So what you just taught yourself was, it's okay to have what's going on in your life and not, or I should say it's possible to have what's going on in your life and not feel like it's going to destroy you. Because you just proved that to yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Yes.
So going forward, does she then recognize that she felt relaxed now, but then also approach these same things that are causing her stress differently? Is this what we're learning?
Well, let me throw the question back to you. Have you ever had a situation in your life that caused you to respond with stress?
Yes.
And when you go to that situation and you bring an anxious, stressed out, angry, irritated mind, how does it work out? Not too good. If you approach it back with a little bit of calmness and stillness and a little more clarity internally, emotionally, and mentally, how does it tend to work out?
Better.
A little bit better. So there's the answer to your question, right? And yes, the last part of what I think I heard you say is that what we're learning? Yes. This practice is not about fixing anything. It's about changing our response and our reaction to things that are happening around us. Because those things, whatever the stressor is now, whenever this gets solved, which I hope it does soon, trust me, give it a week, a month, there'll be more. It's like the kid many months ago, he said, things are really good in my life right now, and I get this feeling that it's not going to stay that way. And I remember saying to him, I hate to break it to you, but it's not going to stay that way. But what changes, yes, is how do we come into that situation differently to not let it destroy us and ruin us. Yeah.
When I meditate, I try to make my mind completely silent. I notice what is going through, but my ultimate goal is complete silence. Is that it was always my understanding that if I let my mind be silent, then I am closer to spirit. I'm closer to, is that how you understand it?
No.
Okay.
But again, that doesn't make it bad or right or wrong, but very different.
Okay.
The first part, I guess my first question was going to be to you, when you say make your mind silent, the question is,
Quiet.
or quiet, sorry, make your mind quiet. And then you said become aware of what's happening around you, right?
Yes.
That part. So to me, yes, that is the practice. That and again, I can only speak for, two things. One, what the Buddha taught about sitting in meditation is that when you're breathing in and taking a short breath, know you're taking a short breath. Breathing out, taking a long breath, know you're taking a long breath. Meaning simply observe sensation of breath, watch thoughts as they arise. Don't cling to them, don't run with them, but just kind of let thoughts rise and, pass, rise and fall, come and go. And complete awareness of, yes, all the sounds around us, right? this is not just for you, but for everybody. If you're not aware of the sounds around you, it doesn't mean that you're in some like deep meditative state. It usually just means you're asleep. Not the end of the world, but just general meditation. The idea is not to check out or go to sleep. It's to be aware of what's happening, like you said. Now, so I think my understanding of meditation is very similar to the first part. The second part, and the reason I said no, is that many spiritual traditions, religious traditions will talk about meditation and teach it differently, and that's beautiful, right? Most meditative traditions and spiritual practices are wonderful. When you said that you want to do that so you can connect with spirit, right? That to me is where it differs from the Buddhist teachings, is that when I'm sitting and I'm just trying to be quiet and still, I'm not trying to connect with spirit. I'm just trying to be present to this moment. And whatever that does for you, that is great. But for me, I'm not trying to connect with some spirit of self, because the Buddha said there is no self. It's actually the self that we're clinging to that causes our suffering. So if I'm trying to connect to myself, then all I'm really trying to do is the ego.
I'm not trying to connect with me.
Right. And so I figured it's, again, I'm responding for everybody, not just you. And if I'm trying to connect with some higher spirit, then that's also not the Buddhist teachings, because there's not a higher spirit to connect with. There's just the present moment. The Buddha wasn't a god, right? His focus wasn't about connecting with gods and goddesses or spirits. His focus was teaching us how to be present in this moment and be nice.
Yes.
Right? But if connecting to the spirit for you is what you do and that works, beautiful. I'm sure that's a wonderful place, and the spirit is probably telling you to do good things.
Yes.
So, rock on. Is that, yeah. And again, all you're really introducing, and it came up with a question today, is there's so many different types of meditative practices. Most religions, most spiritual practices have them, and for the most part, they're all really wonderful and beautiful. They're just different, and so each person who leads will share it differently. I remember years ago, the Jewish Family Services, I've done a lot of work there with meditation, and the rabbi, she asked me to come in and lead, being a Jewish kid, but also Buddhist, she said, can you come in and lead a Jewish meditation? I was like, no, I can lead a meditation, and then if people want to connect it to their, Jewish faith and practice, then beautiful, but I can't. That's not what I do, So it doesn't matter. My master used to say, if you recite the name of the Buddha, you recite the name of Jesus Christ. What you recite, who you connect with is not the important part. The important part is, what do you do? How do you treat people? That's the practice, which I'm pretty sure is what most of those people are saying anyways. Yeah. So. Other questions? Yeah.
I have a question about, the awakened state and becoming aware of the things that make the causes of our suffering. I feel like I have that awareness, and yet it doesn't necessarily diminish my suffering.
Correct.
If I'm experiencing some of the things that we know are causes to suffer, and I'm like, oh, I can see myself on this path where if this doesn't work out, I'm going to suffer, and then it doesn't work out, and I'm suffering, and I'm like, I'm seeing it, but I'm also experiencing it. Is that just the human nature?
Nothing so much as human nature. It's human nurture. It's conditioned. But there's something I've said for years, and I maybe haven't said it in a little while here, but early on, Buddhist practice and what you just described, Buddhist practice doesn't make your life easier early on. It actually, if you're, to me, doing it and really becoming aware, it's going to make things a little more painful, right? If you're watching your thoughts, and maybe the thoughts are greedy or angry or ignorant, or not the most pleasant, beautiful thoughts, and you're watching your words, and the words or how we express ourselves, via social media or whatever it might be, are not so pleasant, and our actions are also not so pleasant and filled with greed or anger and ignorance, then you've just watched, listened, and observed all of your ignorance. That sounds fun, right? So that doesn't fix it. That actually, yes, it's like, wow, I'm kind of a maybe greedy, angry, ignorant person. This sucks.
Well,
Then what?
Yeah. I'm also thinking about things like, and I forget how it's phrased in Buddhism, but when you, like, for example, wanting things.
Yeah.
You want things.
Yes.
And that's danger. There's danger in wanting things. I've learned.
Yeah, it depends what the things are. So the Buddha said that there are healthy, to finish the first thought, along that line, what I'm getting at is to observe those things, but then make changes, right? I mean, as a practitioner, I had to observe all the things I was doing over and over and over again and realizing that was not wise. But just the observance of my ignorance didn't make anything better. I had to actually change. The observance of the craving and desire, first is to understand, and the Buddha taught that there are healthy cravings. There are healthy desires, right? Without the desire to end suffering, Buddha never would have awakened. He never would have taught. None of us would be here. Without the desire to suffer less, none of us would be here. That is a healthy craving. That is a healthy desire. Now, we could all ramble off a bunch of other cravings and desires that maybe aren't so healthy, right? And that's for each of us to determine. What is the intention and motivation behind that craving or desire? And the question is, when we see what we want, we go through our days and we see the cravings and desires that arise, look at them and kind of stop for a minute and say, where is this coming from? And most often it's feeding the ego that says, if I get this, I'm going to feel good. It's like that instant gratification and reward, right? We do a bunch of stuff we don't like to get a bunch of money that we don't really need, to get a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter, to then throw it away and start over. This is the Kerouac quote: work, produce, consume, work, produce, consume. You know, we buy a bunch of stuff to throw it away and get a new one, right? And whatever that craving or desire is, you know, and we chase those cravings, we chase those desires. And when we get them, then we often don't even appreciate them, because then we're on to chasing the next. Cravings and desires are not going to go away. What's the motivation and intention behind them? What happens if and when you get them? What happens if you don't get them? Right? Does that give you more to think about? No answer, but.
No, yeah, it definitely does. And yeah, I guess it's complicated when.
Yes.
But no,
It's not so simple as to say all crave, you know, often we might read Buddhist stuff and think craving, desire, bad. And so then we wake up and think, oh my God, I got to get rid of all my cravings and get rid of all my desires. Well, that in and of itself is a desire. You're now stuck in the desire to get rid of all of your desires. And it's just an endless cycle. Watch your desires, watch your cravings, see where they're coming from, see what they do for you or don't do for you. Become fully aware of them as we go through our days. And that's the part that becomes really challenging and really forces us to kind of ask ourselves, like, what am I even doing? Why am I trying to get this? What is the purpose? What is the intention? Here and then here. There was a hand there, I think, somewhere. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So to your point about meditation not being an escape. So I think of it more as like a detachment. Like I don't want to. So I kind of have this conflict sometimes between like dealing with the stuff that's there and saying like I'm just going to let it go. Like it's really I don't need. It's not. Either say it's not important or
Sure.
it doesn't serve me. So is there a conflict there? Or
Well, I mean, at times, what we're letting go of, the way I'm hearing you describe it, could potentially just be the story in our head that's making things worse. What I'm getting at, the reality to the kind of question over here, was that whatever problems that she had in her life the last few days, sure, you could come here for 20 minutes or an hour and kind of set it aside. But what happens when you walk back out the door? Not every thing you can just get rid of or ignore or push away. We have to face it. The stories that make things worse, you know, we can set those down, but the problems and conflicts in our lives, we can't always just ignore. You know, sometimes that might make it easier, but yeah, and we've all tried. Yeah.
So just to your point about healthy cravings, do you think, you said beyond the desire to not suffer or to suffer less?
And ice cream.
And I suppose it's up to everyone individually to figure out what healthy cravings are or not. And so my question to you is, do you think we have good instincts about that? And
No.
people are like, okay.
Yeah.
So
I was letting you finish, but you already knew where I was going. I was already shaking my head. So the question, if you didn't hear it, was, okay, if it's up to us to determine what are healthy cravings and desires, do I think we have the good instincts to make that determination? Absolutely not, for the most part, right? So, and I did kind of gloss over it earlier, so I'm glad you brought that up. It's like, okay, yes, it's at our, thank you, discretion to determine what is this craving, what is this intention, what is this desire. Did you leave something in here? Yeah. Help the poor college kid out. Don't talk to him, he's still observing silence. The challenge is, if we are these kind of unenlightened, ignorant folks running around filled with greed, anger, and ignorance, and we're trying to watch some decision we're making and justify it as a healthy craving or desire, we can get ourselves into a lot of trouble. So I think the three things that I look at from the Buddhist teachings are really two things, but is what I'm about to do of benefit selfishly for me? Is it of benefit to others? And behind all of that is, what I do think we're pretty good at recognizing is, where's our ego in all of this? We might not stop, right? We might recognize that something is being driven by our ego, and we continue, right? But there's still that recognition of, this is all about me right now. When we make selfish decisions, usually we know. So I find the problem isn't necessarily the knowledge of, is this a healthy or unhealthy decision? The challenge usually is, we know it's unhealthy, we just don't have the ability to stop. For most things, not all things. I mean, there's this like ultimate wisdom that's really hard to define. Complete ignorance we usually know, but more often than not, we know this is not beneficial for self or others. We do it anyways. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, because then it does, it still kind of falls back on us. Of like, yeah, I have to hold myself accountable, right? Yeah, one more, there's a hand in the back and then we'll close. Yeah.
It's kind of about detachment, because I never felt like meditation meant you detach from life and disengage. It seems to me, when I do it, that the detachment is really trying to detach more from the distractions and your automatic impulses and maybe your lesser motivations, if you will.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that meditation is less of a avoidance or a refuge, but it's kind of like pausing and toning down the noise a bit, so that you can better figure out better choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what that's exactly what I feel and what I've learned. And that's exactly what I mean when I say, this is not the escape. This is direct perception into the present moment, and that present moment might suck. Everything I just say after meditation, which is the same thing every time, is exactly what you're saying, which is this allows us to become aware of this present moment. In Buddhism, I don't have time to get into it now, but this idea, the phrase is actually non-attachment. And the practice is not to cut ourselves off from anything. Detach is in the English language, it's like cutting off, detached from. The phrase is non-attachment, which is actually ultimate love and care. So when we do a meditation practice, we are not attaching to the stories in our head that is making things worse. We're becoming present with what's happening, and we're learning how to, with a level of kindness and clarity, approach what's actually going on in our lives. As I always say, whatever mess was out there when you walked in these doors, it's still waiting for you. The world didn't just finish their meditation. They didn't just all of a sudden get kind and compassionate just because we sat in here for an hour exploring the nature of our own misery, you know? We have to go back out there and face whatever's going on. So, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. yeah, it's, wherever you go, there you are is really, the one of the many beautiful expressions around that. You can fly halfway around the world and sit on a mountaintop in Nepal, but if your head is a mess, it's going to be there with you. Your head that's a mess and a lot less money because you just glued it down. So, we'll join palms and close with that. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Marielle during her time of rebirth, and to Brandon and their family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering.